Hi there. Good evening, everyone. It's good to have you back again. My name's Nathan. We're here again with Elke Scholz. I wanted to share with you guys a couple of links before we get started. Elke's put together some resources on her website, anxietywarrior.ca, and I'm going to link you there to the gifts page. I encourage you to check out some of those resources. And I'm also going to post the link to last week's video. Just so you can review there for any of you that haven't had a chance to watch yet. On last week's video, we had a chance to look over anxiety and some of the symptoms. As well, we looked over a strategy to check in and see where we're at in terms of our anxiety levels on a 0 to 10 scale. And also some areas where anxiety comes from. And this week, we're going to talk a bit more about some causes of anxiety. But I'll hand it over to Elke, and maybe we can review a strategy from last week again.
Sure. So what Nathan is talking about is the 0 to 10 scale. So 0 being no disturbance, and 10, of course, being at a place where what I call short-circuiting, or you can't put a thought together. Sometimes it just feels like a blank, or some people say nothing. There's nothing there. So just take a few moments right now, 0 to 10. Where are you now? And it's not a test. So just check in, 0 to 10. So 0, no disturbance, 10 being, of course, off the charts. Nathan, are you willing to share where you are at?
Sure. I think I feel about a 4 in general. The rain helps. It's soothing for me. But I think being here and sharing with all you guys, of course, brings my anxiety level a little bit up from 0. So yeah, 4 is a good number. Check in.
Yeah, and I think I'm probably about a 3. I don't think I'm higher than that, and I'm actually, maybe I am a little bit. Actually, it's interesting. You're liking the rain. I'm finding it stressful because I'm very sound sensitive, so it's hard for me to hear. So I'm as much as I do appreciate the rain for sure. So the 0 to 10 scale is really great because what it does is it helps us check in, and once you get onto it, it's an easy check-in. And the lovely thing too is as soon as a child can count from 0 to 10, they can use the scale and communicate that with you as well. And the idea is that when we know where we're at, then that's when we can start changing things. So awareness is a big part of what we're doing here. And of course, practice, you'll hear me say those words a lot. And then the other reason for the scale too is to really know what your capabilities are, what your limits are, and just to really recognize through the week and as you're going through life how you are going and what you're feeling. So something like going to the grocery store in the past may have been maybe a 4 or a 3, but now it may be a 7 or 8, depending what your experience is and how you're moving into the world. So last week we did talk a little bit about what anxiety is, and you can look on the handout, so we won't review that in the first session, from the first session, I should say. And one of the things that I did talk about is that anxiety comes from many different places. And I've discovered about 11. And last week we really covered, or I keep saying last week, last session, we really covered the chemical part of that. So, and substances. So I won't go over that again, but I'm going to go into physical, which is also very important. So one of the very basic things is, how are you sleeping? And sleep is so important. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on it. There's been lots of research that we do need, when we have enough sleep, it really does help rejuvenate us. And the stats are, if you even have 2, 3, even 4 nights that you're not sleeping well, it already affects your mood in a huge, huge way. And so it's really, really important that you need your rest, we need our rest, we need our sleep. And if you're not getting that regular sleep on a regular basis, we really need to look at why that is. And there could be many, many reasons. And Nathan, you can always jump into with any ideas that you've got. But so one of the things and we talked a little bit about this, was food. And so depending on your body and your sensitivity, and you could be very sensitive to sugars. And it's not always so obvious. It may not be a treat or a piece of chocolate that keeps you awake, but it could be something like white flour, or maybe just eating too much fruit. It happens, and it could give us a restless night. Wine has a lot of sugar in it. A lot of alcohol products have sugar, and they actually, now when you read some of the labels, they will actually have sugar right on there. And beer, it's interesting, craft beer, a lot of craft beers are putting sugar in their beers. So if you're sensitive to that, it will help you go to sleep. However, what happens is your body will metabolize that in time. And you may find, if you're waking up at a regular time, like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, it could be because you've had sugar and your body has not metabolized it. So, and alcohol is it's kind of like a sneaky one, because people will maybe have a beer or a glass of wine to help and relax. However, then in a few hours later, the body's going, oh, we got all the sugar going on, must be time to wake up. So just really kind of start exploring, if you're not sleeping well, where is that coming from? It also could be a lack of exercise. We do need those endorphins, and we do need to burn our energy and get that physical activity. Hormones can also be symptomatic or part of, I should say, why it's keeping you up. So again, you can do some research on that. I'm not a doctor, but if those are questions or you're not sure about where to research, is contact your wellness director. You can email us. We have lots of resources and maybe can steer you in a direction that will help you do some more research. And of course, anxiety, and that will bring us to the next layer, is that when we have things that are on our plate, we can lose sleep over that. So if we're worrying about something, and we talked about that last session, is it can keep us awake. And so things like if we have a big decision to make, maybe we have a court hearing, perhaps we're waiting for a diagnosis from a doctor or tests that are coming back. Perhaps it's finances, and maybe there's things on our plate that finances are worrying us. Look what's out in the world, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, is some of our strategies that maybe we can do. What I'm noticing is that a lot of my clients they were doing fine, and then with all the added stress of what's happening in the world, grocery shopping or going to work or not able to work or working from home, or kids not graduating or graduating, being in school, what's school going to look like, and looking forward to university and residence, and then that not happening. So lots of shifts and disappointments, and they start to wear on us, and little bits at a time, and we think we're doing fine, and then we're breaking down. So I see somebody's raised a hand. I don't see other participants, but there looks like there's a few here. So welcome. Also, if you do have questions, you can type that into the screen. Maybe Nathan, can you say a little bit about that for our participants?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, we have a chat. I'd like you to use that as a first point of contact. I guess during our sessions, we may have some points where you might feel welcome to come and share, or you want to hop onto video and ask a question using voice. So what you can do is you can see maybe there's a spot you can raise your hand, and what I'll do is I'll allow you the opportunity to unmute your microphone, and you can share at that point. So yeah.
Is there a way they can type it in as well, Nathan?
Yeah, any chat section for the moment is the best way to share any questions that you have. So maybe in future sessions, we'll kind of have some questions prepared, and you'll just be able to answer those in the Q&A. But yeah, for today, that's the chat's the best way to ask any questions.
Great. And if you don't want to show your face or have the video going, that's totally fine too. And we respect that privacy, and we're just happy that you would join us. So yeah, so reality, you need to know what your limits are, and again, it comes back to that scale. And I think most of us do know what kind of gets us worried, and usually those are our basic needs. And you know, even though I have skills and Nathan has skills, and you know, we have professionals in your community center, they have skills. However, if our basic needs are being challenged, that will plummet us all into anxiety. So basic needs are shelter, food, warmth, clothing. So if any of those are challenged, and here's how they get challenged is by, of course, money, jobs, if jobs are threatened or they're questioned, especially to what's been going on, that all can throw us into huge anxiety. So be gentle with yourself, and perhaps some of these things will help answer some questions and help you work through it. So, and like I said, afterwards, we're going to talk a little bit about some strategies of what we can do in what's going on today. And okay. So another source of anxiety, and here's the reason that I hope that doesn't overwhelm you, but giving these different places where anxiety comes from. However, the idea is that if we can lower our scale even by a point or two, and coming back to that scale, you know, I'm pretty happy at a 1, 2, 3. I'm okay. But once I get to 3.5, 4, I want to start pulling out my strategy. So it really depends too on yourself of how you feel. Like some people are really happy at an 8. I met somebody that just thrived at being an 8 and said it motivated her and really inspired her. And it's not the way I want to roll, but anyways, we just have to know what our scale is and what's good for us. And the other reason I want to know that scale is I want to know if I go up, like I know if I'm at a 5 or a 6, that it won't take much to take me to a 10, and I really don't want to be there. It's one of those feelings I do not enjoy. So anyways, if I can take it down a few notches, and I think that does help build our resilience. So another one of these is overstimulation. And my daughter, one of the days when I was running out to give a talk, she goes, Mom, don't forget overstimulation. And there's actually a term, FOMO. So Nathan, do you know what that means? FOMO? Have you heard of that? FOMO?
There was a time when I didn't, and that wasn't that long ago, but I think it means fear of missing out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I kind of figured you knew. So fear of missing out. So here's the interesting part is this overstimulation of phones and texts and emails. And so the stimulation of technology. And it's really interesting because I grew up with a dial phone and a party line. So I guess that kind of dates me a little bit, but anyway, we didn't have answering machines at the time. If you weren't home or didn't get an answer, you had to phone back. We certainly didn't have phones in our cars. And I do remember the first cell phone in a car, and actually it was almost the size of a shoebox. So I remember a contractor felt quite modern by having this mobile phone, and it literally was the size of a shoebox and had a big, it actually had a phone that looked like this, but was attached to a shoebox type contraption. So So that was really interesting. And then of course the fax machine, I do remember the first faxes, and we don't even use those very much anymore, but it is still used. And emails, I remember too, getting a computer. So here's the thing, my son was 10 years old when we first got our big computer, and of course it was one of those big desk monitor things, and I would say it filled the room, but it really didn't, but it was still pretty big. Anyways, and then my daughter, by the time she came along, she was born into a home with computers, and of course, pretty soon cell phones. So, so it's different, and emails. This fear of missing out. So and I think all of you have had this experience, and if you haven't, just kind of consider it. When you send a text, just consider how you feel that, oh, you're expecting an answer pretty soon. And it's interesting because earlier, Nathan sent me a text, and I think he tried to phone twice. I had the phone shut off because, of course, we're filming. So I did check the phone, and we resolved what we needed to. But, there's this expectancy, and it doesn't mean that it's a negative thing. And though what it does do, it is an added stress. So I had one client that, and she was a teenager, and she was staying up late nights and not getting her sleep because she was constantly texting with her friends. And it wasn't that she had to, but she really, it was a social thing. So on her own, she decided to just let her friends know slowly and over the course of the day that she was going to shut off her phone at 9 o'clock. So that way it was letting all her friends know that she wasn't going to insult them and she wasn't ignoring them, but really just letting them know that she wasn't going to be answering texts because she really needed her rest and needed to also calm down. So when we have this technology and this excitement, like I said, they're not negative things. However, we have this expectancy. So it just makes us a little more tense and a little less calm. So not necessarily a negative or anxious, however, it does add to that scale. So maybe think about ways that you can lessen that. So does that mean that you turn the TV off, a couple hours before bedtime? Because that blue screen is telling your brain that it's still daytime. So it's keeping you awake. So we need to figure out, and for yourselves, I'm not telling you how to do this, but, and that may be a strategy we can talk about is sleep hygiene, is how to prepare to slow down. And the same with phones. If we're on our phones all evening or texting, that's stimulation. It's exciting, it's fun. However, it's keeping us awake and adding stress as well. So just think about that and think about maybe times you can shut your phone down. One of the things I do enjoy is driving in a vehicle that has no sound. And, I'm kind of wondering, why do I need a phone in my vehicle? I can have some quiet time then. So, it's thinking about when we can have those quiet moments and slowing down times. TV, I guess, gaming, that's another one. So I'm not a gamer. I don't know. Are you, Nathan? Do you play games or do you know people that do?
Not a whole lot. Sometimes I do play video games with my son, but other than that, no. But I know people that it's a real problem for. They're up many hours of the night doing that. So I understand it's an issue.
Yeah, so it's not that gaming, that's a whole different discussion for sure. However, what's really important is that we need that downtime. We do really need that downtime. The brain needs the downtime. So just kind of think about it. Think about how can you lower some of your anxiety? How can you lower some of the stress? And like I said, it's not like it's always a bad thing, but it's time sometimes to shut the phone off and then you're not expecting anything. But I know now that I have a different cell phone. One of the first things I do in the morning is I check about any messages. So, you know, there's that expectancy of, you know, is there a message or a text? So, so consider that for sure. Now I'm just watching our time. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. Another source of anxiety is social and cultural beliefs. And I'm just actually, yeah, I've got some of them out here. So we're going to go over some of these. So social and cultural beliefs are things that we've learned in our, and I'm going to say in our group, our tribe, our community. And I'm going to ask Nathan, because he's done this with me before, but put him on the spot maybe a little bit. But why is it so important that children at a young age, and we call them sponges till about the ages of 6, is why is it so important as humans that we absorb the beliefs of our community? Why is that so important? Think hunter-gatherer times when we were living and we had to rely on each other.
Yeah, I guess the first thing that comes to mind for me is the ability for coexistence. But yeah, other
Absolutely.
than that,
Yeah, you're bang on. You're bang on. Yeah, absolutely. So we needed to take on the beliefs of the community was for survival, for coexistence. If we didn't, how were we going to survive? We didn't have fur, we didn't have claws or fangs. We needed to be together, and we needed to take on those beliefs. And we still do that. So young children are looking at their parents and their environment, and they are absorbing the beliefs of their community. And I just want to talk about a few, and we can, I used to separate them as social beliefs and cultural beliefs, but you know what? Sometimes they're a little bit hard to differentiate, and I don't think it's so necessary. So some of these, I've been hearing one recently. Someone says you need to work hard to earn a living. And that one we hear all the time. And so I would like to ask anybody, why would that maybe not be true? And I'm not picking on Nathan. Anyways, so some of these beliefs is we've got to challenge them if we feel like we should do something. And you know, is it true? You can ask yourself, is it true 100% of the time? We've heard things like boys are tough, boys don't cry. We've heard things like that. We've heard cultural things where you know, we talk about blondes, and we say terrible things about it, but they're all things that people start believing. And, you know, internationally, they call Canadians gentle, but is that 100% of the time? No, it's not true. You know, another one is money is the root of all evil. I don't know if any of you have heard any of these things, but I certainly did growing up. I used to hear rich people are crooks, and I believe that, and I was brought up business people were crooks, and until I got to know other businesses, and I just went, wow, these are really nice people. So, you know, we pick up these beliefs, and our brains, when we're little, our brains think they're true. And then what we do is we look at life's experiences, and then we think they're true. So here's a little story. And again, it's about, you know, maybe a custom or a belief. And it's a modern story. And this little girl was asking her mother, she said, "Why are you cutting the leg off the lamb roast before you put it in the oven?" And the mother said, "Well, that's how Granny did it. I mean, so that's why I do it. So maybe we'll ask Granny when she comes over for dinner." And so when Granny came over, the little girl said, "Well, Granny, why did you cut the leg off the roast of the lamb?" And she said, "Well, that's how my mother did it. So that's how I learned to do that." So they went to visit the great-great-grand, and they asked her, and they said, why did you cut the bone off the roast of the lamb?" And she said, "Well, because it wouldn't fit in the oven otherwise." So here's this tradition that came down 3 generations, and the women, there was no harm in it. And that's, some of these beliefs I mentioned aren't nice, but some of them, there's no harm in them. And yet we do these things and we believe these things because our parents did, and our parents' parents, and it's a generational thing. And here it was just a practical thing to fit it in the stove. It had no other purpose but that. And so the reason that beliefs can be that one isn't a stressor, it's just to illustrate the story, of course. But the reason that sometimes a belief system can be a stressor is that if I believe that I need to do the Christmas dinner, and that's important for me to do to be a good daughter, and yet my body and my whole system is stressed, and I feel, and I'm going to emphasize this word, I feel that I should do it because I need to be a good daughter. So what happens, though, and why this creates anxiety and stress, is that that belief may not fit for my life or my family or myself. So and here's the clue for you, and you still may decide to do that Christmas dinner. You may decide to still be that good daughter. However, just know that it's a choice. And also, if you're feeling the feeling that you should do it, so again, emphasizing the word should, then maybe step back and just ask yourself, where is that coming from? And I don't know, Nathan, can you think of a time where you felt you should do something as a son or a father or a partner, where you felt you should, but then discovered that, wow, this was giving me a lot of anxiety? If not, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything that can come to mind right away, but I know there's like, when you're talking about this specific thing, it's in my core that I've been in that circumstance, and so maybe I'm just telling myself, be aware of it for next time, and pay attention, right?
Right, and it's always a choice. And I think the difference is, if you now that we're talking about belief systems, like maybe, sometimes it's hard to think of, especially at the beginning. And that's why we're doing this program, is just to start giving things names. As you may start noticing, oh, wow, I do this because I think I should do it. And it doesn't mean that you'll stop, but at least know that maybe it's something that you've learned, and know that maybe it doesn't fit and maybe it does. It's really something that you can decide. So, I mean, there's lots of things that people say. It's like, because it's supposed to be this way, good things don't come easy. We hear these things, and yeah, and they're not true. They're belief systems. So that's really something good to explore, and it is covered in the books. And if you haven't gotten Anxiety Warrior 1 or Anxiety Warrior 2, just know there's still kits available at the community center, and just ask your wellness director. So a symptom of these cultural beliefs is self-doubt. And it does get your body second guessing. And so when I'm just going to go back to the dinner thing is if I think I should do this, but yet my body doesn't want to, or it doesn't feel like it's a beneficial thing for myself or my family, then I'm going to have that second guessing inside myself. And it's that yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Should I? Yes, I shouldn't. I shouldn't. And that creates a lot of stress and anxiety. And if that is getting you, and I saw you nodding your head, you know, we all go through it. Do I do this? Do I do this? Should I go in this direction or maybe the other direction? That can cause a lot of stress and, of course, anxiety as well. So that second guessing, the self-doubt, it affects our self-esteem. And I always used to say, boy, you know, I love those decisions that are absolute. When I know absolutely yes, this is a good idea, it's a relief. Or absolutely no, that's a relief. But it's those in-betweens that give us that stress. So just kind of think about where some of that comes from, and know that it does promote a bit of anxiety. And another one that goes with that, which is interesting, is perfectionism. So I put that under self-doubt, because perfectionism, again, isn't a bad thing. It's great to have a high bar. It's great to expect good things of yourself and good things of other people. And I don't want you to stop doing that. However, we can really create a lot of anxiety if we're expecting too much of ourselves, and if we're stressing about being these perfect human beings. And you know, that's really tough. And I think even now in what's going on, you know, I call it the outside world because I have this wonderful property. You know, we need to be accepting and kind, and again, this have some tolerance for people. You know, I don't really believe they're being mean. I think that if they're in fear, they're just having some bad reactions, and maybe not, you know, behaving as calmly as maybe they could. But so, you know, thinking about that perfectionism too, and your high bar is, it's always great to strive higher and have that high bar, but also want to understand that it may be our bar as well. And well, I sure can say a lot about perfectionism, and maybe that's maybe I'll say a little bit more about that and go into strategies, because I know the next few are pretty big topics as well. So one of the things with perfectionism, and what I learned was, you know, I have a high bar, so that's why I can talk about it. And but you know, and I'm going to quote a few people, Eckhart Tolle and Marshall Rosenberg. You know, if it gives people pain around us, then we've really got to look at that. And I had to really look at, you know, my bar. And if I was giving other people grief and causing pain to my family because, you know, I wanted the towels folded a certain way, or I needed the garden done a certain way, and I had to look at that and go, you know, this is my bar. This is not necessarily somebody else's bar. And yeah, I see you nodding your head there, Nathan. You know, if somebody's working really hard, like if gardeners are working really hard and they put in, you know, 8 hours of backbreaking work, but then they missed, you know, the occasional weed, or they didn't get a certain area, that isn't cause to be upset because our bar happens to be higher. The idea is to be grateful for the backbreaking work that they did do. And we can raise that bar. We can go and do that 10% that we need to do for our own satisfaction. And that's not a bad thing. It's just to recognize it and not to give other people grief, and also not to give ourselves grief. I think another, I don't know, does this bring up anything, Nathan, any examples or?
So actually,
Oh, I can't hear you.
What came to mind specifically was something from my childhood, and actually about laundry. So yeah, I mean, that's for me was an issue. I think it was a stepfather I had. I was folding laundry and maybe not well enough, so it got unfolded and I had to redo it. And I think that was frustrating at the time. Obviously now it's not a big thing, but that came to mind while you were talking, and I hadn't thought about it probably in whatever 20 years or 30 years. So yeah.
Well, give me the signal because I couldn't hear you, but are you done? Okay, good. Okay. For whatever reason, my volume, and next time I'll have to have my earplugs handy just for that. But anyways, I'll listen to it after. So there you go. And we've been perfectionists. We got, maybe you noticed that this recording is clearer. We got a new camera, we've got a new mic. The light that we had has gone off, but that's okay. So we're also raising our bar to bring a better presentation to everybody, and that's part of this process. And just knowing it's a process and it's okay, that it's all okay, and going with that. So we've got, I guess we've got about 15 minutes. Yeah, okay, good. All right, so one of the things, or a few of the things actually, that I wanted to talk about is some of the strategies that we can use right now with what's going on with all this physical distancing and isolation and some of the things. And one of the things I do want to mention is that fear and living with a lot of anxiety does change your body chemistry. So I was talking to a client today and they were...
Okay, it seems like Elke's gotten disconnected. Maybe just in the meantime, let's have a quick check-in. We'll see where we're at on our 0 to 10 scale, and we'll see if we can get her back online before we end up the meeting. I'd love to get one more strategy in for this session. Okay, just hang tight. Okay, so it looks like Elke's connection has definitely been cut off. What we've done, we've brought her on the phone line. Maybe what we can do is have everybody check in to make sure we can hear her all right, and if there's any issues, just let me know. Okay, so here's Elke. We'll bring her on maybe to go over one strategy and say goodbye to everybody. Okay, Elke, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Nathan. And yeah, so there you go. Here we are in Muskoka. So I guess my oh, it's echoing. Is it echoing for you?
You'll just have to, if you can talk through the echo that you're getting, then that's okay. It's not audible on this.
Okay, fine. Well, one of the things I was saying is that fear changes your body chemistry, and I think we need to really be careful of that. And it does wear us down. It wears down our resilience. So one of the things that I've been encouraging people to do when this all started in early March was to disengage and know when to disengage. And what I mean is to limit the news and the media. A lot of it is speculation, unfortunately. And, you know, I'm an author and a writer, so I pay attention to a lot of words, and so much has been speculation and unfortunately has frightened people, and it breaks my heart, actually. So I really encourage you as a strategy to limit. I understand, limit your news watching, limit the social media articles. I know Stats Canada, even though they're not complete, they don't have all the information yet. They're still, though, really trying hard to be accurate. And you can look at the numbers and the charts on the official site. And again, it's, I hear this so much from my friends. There's announcements of positive things, and then immediately a negative seed is planted. And I find that we're just too sensitive. We're also, I know that everyone wants to be aware. However, please think about how watching the news does affect your system. And it is actually pretty harmful. The other thing, so disengage, know when to disengage, know when to choose, try and limit. I know we need to stay aware, but truly we do find out what we need to through each other and the important things we do hear about. So again, engage with people. And we need to look in each other's eyes. We need to smile. And even more so now. And it's so important to look in somebody's eyes. And I've noticed, again, my heart gets really heavy, is people looking downward. And, whether they're in a store or walking, and that hurts my heart. So what I try to do is just smile or say hello or I'm fine. Think of things that you can, simple things. It doesn't mean we have to engage with strangers in conversation. However, we do need to connect. We're meant to be together. We're not meant to be separate. We're not meant to be alone. We're meant to be connected. And this connection has been harmed. And I think a lot of us have felt that hurt and the pain and the loss. And whether it's, not being able to see someone or touch them or hug them or whatever your safety or caution is, it's still, it's painful. So one thing we can do is we can certainly look in each other's eyes and smile. And, that is so appreciated. And I've just noticed, to make that effort, I know it takes a little effort to do that. Especially if we're a little bit nervous or shy. However, there's such a great benefit to have someone else look in your eyes and smile back and say, yeah, I'm okay too, and have a great day. And really, they mean it. And that's so lovely. So it's just so important. And the other, I know there's a few little strategies here that I have, but they're also big strategies. Besides staying connected, stay connected with nature. Nature, the baby robins are they're out of the nest now, and I've been watching them, and the birds are still laying their eggs, and right now I've got flycatcher babies, and honestly, if you haven't seen them, they're so darn cute. Their heads they look like they're slicked down little heads and furry bodies, and they're poking their heads out of the nest now. And nature and the birds, they're still singing. Right now I've got a little mourning dove in the pouring rain, still trying to find some of the sunflower seeds that got thrown around. And so those things are still happening, and nature gives us that confidence of, the flowers are still blooming, the deer are still in the field, the fish are still swimming in the river, and it just gives us that groundedness. It's so important. And, the other thing, I was talking to someone, and Nathan, you just interrupt me. I know we've only got a few minutes left, but one of the things I'd like to challenge everybody with is we need to stretch our brains. And sometimes that hurts a little bit and gives us a headache. But you know what? We're creative people, is to reach out. And somebody was saying, yeah, we really like hiking, but the trails are so congested. And I said, well, this is an opportunity to find new trails and explore Muskoka. And we have great country roads. And I don't know if people know this, but we have the Ride community. They have painted their barns with quilts. And a lot of people don't know that. And it's just, you can walk on this country road, it won't be crowded, and there won't be much traffic. So there's things like that to explore around here. And so I want to challenge you in that is, you know, how can we be creative and stretch ourselves a little more, explore some of our area, and you'd be maybe a little surprised that you're going to discover some fun things that we have in Muskoka that maybe you didn't know about.
I love that. It's a great suggestion. Finding positive, always. Great job.
Oh yeah, and you know, and Nathan, thank you so much for reminding me of that word positive. And you know, there's been so many beautiful, positive things that have come out of this, and if we can keep looking to that, and what I'd like to really wrap up with is the power of our own minds. What we've got between our ears belongs to us, and nobody has control of that. Not one person, not one thing. We have that in between our ears belongs to us. So we have that choice to empower ourselves. We have that choice to be positive. We have that choice to be creative, and it's the same world. And we have a lot of power between our ears, a lot. And that's something we could talk about next session. I'm going to make a note of that. And I get pretty excited. And our next session is July the 7th. And I know I get pretty excited. I could probably talk another hour, but I won't.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's about 5:30 now.
Yeah.
Everybody, I guess we can kind of wrap things up. Do you want to just take a moment to say goodbye, Elke?
Yes, just have a great 2 weeks, and I do encourage everybody to send your questions, anything that you'd like us to talk about. We're just happy to. I think it's in your newsletters, and all the links and everything is available. So,
okay. Well, thanks for calling back, getting back online with us, and finishing up, Elke. Okay.
yeah, you bet. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
All right. Well, I've let Elke go. I wanted to thank you all personally for joining us again. It's going to be 2 weeks till I see you again. So July 7th, again at 4:40. Be well. Okay. Bye for now.